All right, welcome back. We're here to talk about a very special install for this. What Nick is calling the Starfall Elite Crystal Core. So this started, I think, as like a mystery saber that got upgraded, and it was something that Nick wanted to try more of. So he and I had some discussions about, you know, how components could be placed into a core that removes. So let us hop down to the table. Let's go over all of the stuff that went on with the internals because it's pretty cool. This was a customer that actually, once he kind of got to understand what was going on, he asked for a bunch of things. So I had to learn some new things. Let's go down to the table and talk about that. All right, so here is the hilt itself. We have a blade plug. Let me take that out. We can see here on my desk a shroud that I had removed that will go over the grip section that's just magnetically held. But we've got a bunch of accent pixels here, and we'll show the core in a second. But just while it's out, this is the core in setting. There's a blade detect feature so that these will change and the font will change when it's out. But we've got some emitter stuff happening. Shtok V3 subbladed. We have 2 brass Phil Guinness soft switches. We have 2 5-pixel strips that will be more easily seen on the chassis when I pull it out. Those are 2020s. We have a single pixel under the core. We've got a Shadowfoil nano pixel, that's a 1515, and this is a Shadowfoil circular array. There's 6 around, and then the center one just has duplicates what this one does because of the routing. And then we've got 2 2020 strips on either side. And again, I'll show this out. So the concept is this whole core removes, and then when it's fully assembled, you know, you'll still get shine through. And then I did etch a plaque here, I should say. So this is the first Elite Crystal Core, and that reflects that. Now, also, just for the customer, Nick had done a set screw for the main blade, but I went ahead and provided a brass thumb screw just because I like something to be easy. But if you decide that you wanted to keep it to his aesthetics, I will include the set screw. It is the same thread and size as the set screw that's holding the core in place. So let's take the core out and talk about it. So in order to do so, we'll take the shroud off. And then as soon as we do, hopefully I'll keep this close to my mic, but you'll hear once this pogo pin springs kind of push this out, you'll hear the blade detect feature on the core out setting. So let me undo this. So that now switches fonts, and it recognizes that it is the core out, and it has switched some of these accent features, and it pulled a different sound font. So up top, we've got a 6... Sorry, I forgot that it does that. So the way the blade detect feature works is there's a resistor in the little pogo pin connector down there at the bottom. And so when the resistor is detected, and of course my skin has resistance, it will change from this blade out to a blade in. We have the Proffie V3 kicked up at an angle. This is just where we could fit it. Nick did mill some slots for accents, for buttons, and then you can see I put some little SMD LEDs for Bluetooth hiccups. There's a Bluetooth hiding underneath the Proffie in the tray there. So the blinking is just awaiting connectivity, and I'll show that here with my spare mobile phone. And then there will be a green light. The blue will go solid when it's connected, and I think the green will as well when there's connectivity. Anyway, so we've got, like I said, 5 pixels under here. If the core is facing you with the crystal, this is your main switch and your aux switch. And so these are just little tactiles. You can see some emboss patterns that I did in the cutouts. This was spray painted with a copper and then kind of lightly touched up with a gold rub and buff to sort of match the aesthetics. The lighting in here might wash it out a bit. Here, I'll turn it off and we can see. but you'll see there is a little bit of a color difference, but I tried to match it. And then we have a removable battery section, and that has a separate set screw here. So we'll take this and undo this, and you'll want to keep track of this because it's a very thin material. And so in order to get this to come fully out, you'll pretty much have to take the whole thing out. And so the pommel cap holds that in. You'll notice on the little ridge that Nick milled, there's like a slot. You can use that to line up, but basically you just shove it in. And then the battery section comes out. So we lose connectivity here. I'll go ahead and get the kill switch off so when it comes back in, it's not going to turn it on. But so the lighting comes out, and we've got, like I said, a row of 2020. We've got a 24 millimeter KR bass speaker. And so these are in parallel. I do have a custom battery wrap here. Just to note, you can knock it out with your fingers. It's just held in with keystones. Take note that the positive is towards the bass speaker. Okay, so I've got a little positive terminal there. So when you go to put the battery back in, do not put it in backwards. You will fry the electronics when the battery section goes back in. And so then, like I said, we've got our little Shadowfoil Nano, and then the Shadowfoil Ring, and the center does what that one does. So when we get ready to put it back in, oh, and we have another set of Shtok 6-rail connectors. That is to bring not only the battery terminals, the speaker terminals, but also the data and negative line to control the NeoPixels on here. So to put it back in, we'll just line up those holes. And if you're off just a little bit, it's okay. You can adjust it with your Allen key. So then we'll push that through. And then you can see you'll want to hold with your finger. I'm going to go ahead and just align that real quick with the key. That's the wrong Allen size. And then we'll have to press with our finger to depress those pogo pins. And then let me just actually kick this a little bit more so it's fully aligned. There we go. So now I got that hole fully lined up. And then I'll just put my set screw in here and fully engage this so that it goes down into that recessed ridge, because otherwise you'll get resistance when you put this back in. So go ahead and flip this back on. So this is the Harry Solofont's workshop. This is supposed to be kind of like a Jedi Fallen Order. This, on the side strips, this has Brian Connor's blade style, but I made a couple modifications for this per this customer's request. So in the off state, these pulse, these do something different. And we do have twist on and thrust on. So to turn it on, now you'll notice as we swing, the lights go a little bit more. And when you lock up, it'll get into this mode where you're like adjusting the timing. So if we clash, I'm in battle mode, so it's holding a lockup right now. But you can see the font is responding to my adjustments. And anyhow, so I will turn it off. There's some cool stuff to happen, but I know this particular customer is going to do his own thing with the config, so I just made sure to get the resistance value for the core in and out. But just wanted to show off that these strips can do their own thing. And like I mentioned, the center is going to match what this does, and then these are also in parallel. So these are going to match each other. So when we go to put the core in, Nick had suggested in his breakdown videos that if you kind of do it to the side and then twist once you get towards the end there, you'll get less resistance on the core. So now we've got the core engaged, and we'll use the blade set screw size for this one. So there are 2 Allen keys to take note of. And then you heard it change font, so now we're in the full Starfall setup. And if you want, we can put our shroud on. But I'm going to leave it off so we can see all the animations. So again, did a subbladed NeoPixel emitter. This is your main, this is your aux, so it matches what the chassis looks like when it's facing you. So do that. Now, let me go ahead and demonstrate Bluetooth connectivity. So I've got a spare iPhone over here with the ForceSync app. And then you don't really have to do anything. You just wait for it to show up for the Feezy Connect. Of course, you're going to give me all kinds of... So now we can see that it does recognize that there's a Bluetooth. And then this is the first time I'm connecting, so it's asking me to pair. There is no, even though I've set a password, that's not how this thing works. You can just hit pair. There is no password. And so then you'll scroll over to Proffie. And now we can remote control. Now keep in mind that if you remote control this with the core out, there's only one sound font, so you can't really adjust any of the settings. But we can see there's our volume setting, our battery, and we can turn on the Saber, right? And we can lock it up. You see all the accent pixels respond. Can do a blaster block. Do a force. So not all of the things do a force setting. So this is set up for a 36-inch blade, and I will demonstrate that here in a second. But yeah, so we can change presets, right? Our colors change.
Hero's Journey.
We can start and stop the tracks here. Now, it will only start and stop the designated track. When you're actually operating the Saber, there's track player mode. So I'll demonstrate that here in a second. So just letting you know that the Bluetooth is working. So we'll go ahead and turn this off. I will put this is I think 36-inch quantum blade. So we'll just make sure it's hitting those pogo pins. Again, I've put a thumb screw here, but I'm gonna provide the original set screw if that just meets your aesthetic choice. I did it for ease of comfort for me, just because I like that. But do know that it does match the core size, so you may want to have it. But I figured if you're going to take this anywhere and keep the core in, then a quick thing without a tool makes sense. So we have our blade in, and again, track player mode in the off state is just if you're holding the hilt like sideways and you hold power for a second or two, you'll get a chime. And then you can rotate until you pick a font, press one of the two buttons to start it, and then hold again to stop it. So I've loaded up the common folder with a bunch of tracks that I normally put on these Sabers, so you can scroll to your heart's content. Again, I'll have a printout for instructions on these, but the customer's getting pretty aware of how to program himself, so he'll just be able to do all that stuff. So, but when the Saber is upright, that's how you start and stop the designated track, just like I showed there in the Bluetooth demo. So hold it up, and then we can just start and stop the designated track. And then you can start and stop the track when the blade is on, but you can only start and stop the designated track, and it has to be upright. Otherwise, you'll be doing a force effect. So let's start up the blade here. We got full ignition here. And again, I've provided twist on and twist off. So if you use a gesture to turn the blade on, you'll get into battle mode. Otherwise, if that's not your jam, if you don't like the ability to accidentally engage lockups with a clash. So I'm locked up here. Pull out. Then you can just hit the button and control lockups with a button press. So let me demonstrate that real quick. So if I want to lock up, I have to hold either aux or power as I clash, right? And until I let go, it's just going to stay in a lockup. Whereas if you're in battle mode, if you pull out of your position, that's how you get out of a lockup. Now, a lockup is also blade tip effects. So let me do this with the battle mode. It's easier. So if I'm sideways, I'll get a melt. And I can twist it, and it'll respond differently, right? And if I'm pointing down, and I don't know if I can do this on screen, then I can get a drag effect. There we go. So Otherwise, if we're not in battle mode, you have sideways can also be a stab effect. So if I'm not pressing a button, I'll get a stab effect, which is just a quick little animation. It's different for every blade style, so you can learn how that happens. So again, otherwise a hold on the power button is our force effect, and I have animated all of these blades to do either an unstable or a force boost aura effect that will only last as long as the sound effect is playing. So on this one, hold it for a second. You can see that goes to an unstable until that force sound goes away, right? Some of these Starfall fonts will have quotes, and some of the other other fonts that are on the SD card, I've not programmed them as presets, but they're there for you if you want them. They came default with the Proffie. And like I said, I know that this customer is gonna, as soon as he gets it, write his own config because he wants to fully activate all of these different accent pixels. But to switch between force player and quote player, point the hilt down and hold for a second on power. This font does not have any quotes, so nothing happens. So let's go back. If we're pointed down and tap the aux, we'll go backwards. There we go. I know this one has some. So, all right. So again, if I hold power for a second, we're in force player. If I point the hilt down, so these came to me as all just force effect sounds. And so on the few fonts from Starfall that do have weird talking things, I renamed those to quotes so that I could demonstrate quote player. So nothing will happen on the blade now. You'll just play a quote. But if we want to go back to force player, there we go. So that was a longer sound effect, and you can see it lasted as long as it did. So that, again, that's all having to do with the power button. So again, force player, quote player, track player, designated track, etc., is all holding the power button for about a second, whether or not the blade's on and whether you're pointed in a specific direction. If you want to advance fonts, hit the aux button in the blade off state. You can also hold it and rotate. You've also got edit mode on here, so I did provide a voice pack in the common folder. I think it's Huyang. And then if there's a font that has a character that Brian Connor has done a voice pack for, or some of the other folks out there doing that, I've gone ahead and put that into the font folder so it will switch. So let's demonstrate that. So I'm just gonna do a quick battery level, hold aux tap power.
Battery level 54%.
So I think it's gonna just be Huyang for all of these Starfall fonts. But if the core was out and we did it, then it might be something else. I don't remember. But again, there's a bunch of fonts on the SD card. The config is on the SD card for the customer who's gonna basically rewrite it as soon as he gets it. So it'll be there. Yeah, and so that's pretty much this saber. So once again, let's take the blade out, and then I'll hop down to the table. Phone is off again, so we're not gonna see that green light on the Bluetooth monitor, but we'll see if I take this out. The pogo pin's disconnected there. Again, I'm gonna rotate a little bit so that I get less hiccups again. So I get less resistance. Here, let me demonstrate one more time the Bluetooth connectivity on this. We'll touch it. And you can see now that green light is solid. And then we'll go to there. I'm gonna leave that down there for just a second. And you can see that's kind of washed out. So let me turn this back on. There you go. So it's a blue and a green. I know that the Shtok module kind of has those built on, but this is just the KR BT909. So it's just tucked underneath that Proffie. We'll hit the kill switch. everything shuts off. And again, it does disconnect the battery, so you don't have to worry too much. I will say do exercise a little bit of caution when the battery's out, not to bridge any of those contacts on the rail side. Chances are you won't, because you'll just be popping it in and back out. So yeah, that is the Saber. To the customer, if you have any questions, obviously we have been communicating for all of these things that you wanted programmed in, so we have a dialogue going. But I know that once you get it, you'll probably just straight up rewrite the config. If you run into any errors, I always suggest to every customer, as soon as you get your Saber, take the SD card out, get a little card reader, put it into your desktop computer, save the entire SD in a folder that you can remember. Again, the config will be on there. If you ever have an issue, you can always wipe your SD card, reload it back up, and put it back in the Saber, and it will work just as I've programmed it. So to anyone else out there watching, hope you enjoyed this particular demo. It's a very unique setup. This is the Elite Crystal Core from Starfall. Very cool idea. I've got one more to do for Nick, and I know he's going to probably have customers want to do stuff like this in the future, where we get, really nice chassis, but everything's tucked into the chassis. To the customer, thank you so much for your patience. And to everyone else out there, may the force be with you.